Johnny Dollar.
St. Clair, Mr. Dollar, and Kennett, Missouri. Would it be possible for you to come out here right away?
Kennett, What did you say your name is?
Charles Kingsley St. Clair. I'm...
Oh, yeah, with Providential Assurance Company.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, now, wait a minute. I thought you were leaving the company.
Dollar.
If you're such a gentleman, you just couldn't stand doing business with the poor, wretched clients you inherited.
Mr. Dollar, I am a changed man.
Well, good for you.
It is true that some of the people that I've been sent down here to deal with, well, I consider them nothing more than poor white trash, ignorant, illiterate.
Well, I'll say this for them. They sure know how to make some pretty powerful moonshine.
Right, very true.
Yeah, if one of those characters hadn't poured some of that white mule down my gullet, I doubt if I'd have been crazy enough to go out after that killer.
But thanks to you, Dade Wupperman was indicted, tried, found guilty, and has been incarcerated.
Yeah, that was the one, Dade Wupperman.
Unfortunately, Mr. Dollar, Dade has a brother. His name is Daniel. I beg your pardon. Daniel. He's been making trouble, very serious trouble.
Oh? Like what?
Murders.
I see.
So if you take a plane to Memphis, I shall be more than glad to meet you there.
Oh, now look, mister, I was lucky once. Got out of that swamp country alive. But I'd be nuts to stick my neck out again. And since those people already know who I am, what my job is... Okay, St. Clair, I'll grab a plane.
CBS Radio brings you Bob Bailey in the exciting adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Providential Assurance Company office in Kennett, Missouri. Following is an account of expenses incurred during my investigation of the deadly swamp matter. Item 1 is 7645 plane fare, Hartford to Memphis. Charles Kingsley St. Clair met me as promised, and apparently the man had changed considerably from the snooty, better-than-thou stuffed shirt I'd found him to be on my first trip.
Yes, Mr. Dollar, in spite of my earlier feelings about the clients my predecessor had left me...
Yeah, I know, Mr. St. Clair. But those moonshiners and such existing in that 20-mile swamp are hardly typical of the folks living around Kennett, where your office is.
Oh, I realize that now, and I shall stay in Kennett, try to justify the company's confidence in placing me there.
Very good.
Nevertheless, when I came to this part of the country, the swamp people were the only ones with whom I had to deal. They were the only ones to whom he had sold insurance, and... when I saw the horrible, dirty, squalid way in which they lived in those broken-down shacks full of vermin...
Kind of turned your stomach, huh?
Quite frankly, it did exactly that. That's why I requested transfer to our New England offices. But now, of course, I plan to stay down here. Now, when you came here before, you taught me a great lesson in how to deal with them, how to understand them.
Yeah? By having my car wrecked for me, by getting shot at and nearly drowned in that swamp.
But you succeeded in enlisting the help, the cooperation of the good ones among them, and earning their respect.
Well, I had to do something to get out of there alive.
The point is that you did. You have friends among them now, and you'll be willing to help you again.
Yeah, well, that's something that... Oh, now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You mean these murders you call me about? They're back in that swamp country, too? Oh, great.
Oh, no, Mr.
And I thought that maybe for once... Okay, St. Clair, let's have it. What's it all about?
As I told you, a series of murders.
So you're having to pay out a lot of insurance.
No.
And you think that I can somehow, miraculously, put a stop to... Huh? Did I hear you say no somewhere along the line?
Oh, the victims of these murders have, they've been, relatives of some of my clients.
Up in the swamp country?
Up in the swamp country.
Well?
Clients whom you know, whom you met when you were here before.
Go on.
And thanks to you and what you did for them, they regard the company, and therefore me, and you, as a kind of, as a protective agency. A protection for them, with only their best interests at heart. That sort of thing is very good for the company. Yeah. Shall we stop for some lunch?
Yeah, sure, go ahead and stop if you like. But if you think you can talk me into meddling into these murders when it's a job for the law...
But it's not for the law.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as I told you before, these people living far beyond any town or city limit, they're pretty much a law unto themselves.
Well, yeah, that I know. And the local police leave them alone.
They have no jurisdiction.
So what about the state authorities?
Well, that region of the big swamp pretty much straddles the state line.
Oh?
Neither state wants it. And I can't blame them. In any event, when a murder occurs, by the time jurisdiction is established... Miss Dollar...
Well?
Do you remember the beneficiary of the policy you came down here to pay off with the insurance money?
A Eufa Crump.
That's right.
Yeah, real sweet, pretty young kid.
Yes.
St. Clair, I'll never forget the look in her eyes, the almost childish, unabashed gratitude when I gave her that money.
Yes.
Now she can have pretty clothes for a change, good food on the table.
Oh,
she can fix up that little house she and her kids live in, buy some lace curtains for the windows, and... Oh, what do you mean, no?
Eufa was the latest victim of this killing. Well?
Come on, St. Clair. Tell me what you know so I can get to work on this thing.
Next time you refresh, enjoy a frosty, ice-cold Pepsi-Cola.
Sociability, Charlie.
All right, Kay, how's this? Pepsi is light, refreshes without filling. You like to refresh? Have a Pepsi right now.
Well, offer it to everybody, Charlie.
I will. Enjoy Pepsi at the fountain. It's delicious at home, too. Have one at lunch or with a snack.
Charlie.
At the beach or at dinner. Wherever you go, Pepsi is there.
It's here, too, in our Be Sociable song. Be sociable, look smart, keep up to date with Pepsi. Drink light, refreshing Pepsi. Stay young and fair and debonair. Be sociable, have a Pepsi.
For the weekend, have plenty of Pepsi around. Pick up an extra carton today. CK, I'm sociable.
With Pepsi, everyone is.
And now, Act Two of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Eufa Crump. Yeah, what a name. But that cute, intelligent little girl, really out of place in the swamp country. Well, regardless of how you or I or the law might feel about it, her inheriting that moonshine still, when her husband was killed a while back, had meant something to provide for both her and her children. Then the insurance she received on top of it. And she planned to marry Cass Dingle, the character who'd befriended me, who'd helped me run down her husband's killer. Cass, who was going to leave this desolate country, get out in the world and make an honest living for her. Yeah, but it was Cass who'd sacrificed his life out there in the swamp in order to save mine.
No, Mr. Dollar.
What?
Cass Dingle is still alive.
But I myself saw Dade Wupperman shoot him in the back.
Eufa somehow nursed him back to health. They were married according to whatever rites the swamp people observe, and they were very happy.
And then she was murdered.
Yes, and it was Cass who asked me to call on you again. And since you know him, you know these people.
Okay, stop wasting time, St. Clair. Get me on up to Kennett where I can rent a car and get on this thing.
If you'll drop me at my office, I'll be more than glad to let you have this one. But about some lunch.
Lunch? Forget it. Let's get going. Item 2, 470 for a tank full of gas there in Kennett. And I headed west a few miles, then due north into the swamp country. Well, as I said before, the 20-mile swamp is one of the most dismal, uninviting places I've ever seen. The road, after a while, wasn't even a road, just a set of muddy wagon tracks. More than once, driving slowly and carefully along, I held my breath, hoping St. Clair's car wouldn't bog down in some mud hole. I passed a couple of shacks, falling apart and apparently vacant. But the distinctive smell of moonshine whiskey in the air told me otherwise, that a still was in full operation. If Cass Dingle had married Eufa, he'd gone to her place to live, so I headed that way. But a mile or so before I got there, edging the car around a thicket of wild blackberries, I had learned the last time I was here that when somebody starts shooting, the only thing to do is stop whatever you're in, whatever you're doing. So I did, fast. I ducked down under the wheel on the floorboards, and I pulled out my gun. And I waited.
Miss Johnny? That you, Miss Johnny?
Who are you?
It's Cass, Miss Johnny. Cass Dingle.
Oh, good. Only what was the idea of pulling off a couple of shots?
Howdy, Miss Johnny. I'm glad you come, sir.
Yeah,
I knew maybe a shot would make you stop the car, Miss Johnny. And that way you wouldn't go on...
Because pleasant-tasting chocolated X-Lax is effective. Overnight, it helps you toward your normal regularity. X-Lax is so gentle, so close to natural acting, there's no upset. That's why many doctors and millions of people use X-Lax with complete confidence. X-Lax, the laxative that helps you toward your normal regularity gently, overnight. Now, here is our star to tell you about next week's program.
Next week, a thrilling, hair-raising chase out on the open sea. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, originates in Hollywood and is written, produced, and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in our cast were Ben Wright, Sam Edwards, Roy Glenn, and Vic Perrin. Be sure to join us next week, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. This is Hugh Douglas speaking.
Another gripping drama of suspense, next on the CBS Radio Network.
Who was the first to conquer space? It's incontrovertible that the first to conquer living space is the Castro convertible, who conquers space with fine design, who saves you money all the time, who tops in the convertible line. Castro convertibles.
If you'd like furniture that combines beauty, comfort, and utility at an amazingly low price, then the place for you to go is Castro. At Castro, Route 9, a half mile south of the Latham Circle, you'll see the world's largest and most beautiful display of convertible furniture. There are hundreds of exquisite sofas, love seats, and sectionals, ranging from early American and French provincial to ultra-modern. Each converts to the most comfortable bed, and each is priced amazingly low because Castro is America's largest manufacturer of convertible furniture, selling direct to you.